Alright, welcome back to Becky Amio Horse Training, and this is LR Blue Ambrose. And we've got a little bit of a tack change now here for our 6th ride. I switched him out to my traditional Western saddle, and also I'm using a Gen X Western half pad underneath that. If I haven't created a video yet explaining my other saddle, I will do that, and I'll try to link that in the description bar below. If not, that video is coming. This is the first time actually bridling him. It's the same bit that I've been using, but now we're using a traditional leather headstall on him and a leather cavesson. And this is his first time having something on him, telling him to close his mouth when he does gap his mouth a little bit. We might see a little bit of head shaking in today's video, maybe a little bit more resistance because he feels that I don't have it set really tight. I've got a thumb space in there, so it's not really clamped down on him, but I do want to point that out. The sooner I can get one of these on a horse, the more accepting they are of it. Further down the line, when I get something that has had 30 days already and I'm doing the next 30-day tune-up, I usually can't get one of these on them. It's kind of grounds for wanting to kind of flip over on you, so it's a piece of equipment you want to be real careful when using. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out a little bit, and we're going to get started. It's a really warm day here in Blunt, South Dakota. It is 60 degrees, and it has been on the chillier side, and so this colt is already kind of played out, and I'm afraid I'm going to run out of horse. I just got the arena dug up. JD did that for me, and it's a little bit deeper than it has been, and so he's going to probably play out pretty quick before I get everything done that I want to get done on him today. So we'll just go as far as we can go. I'm going to start out here in the round pen, do a couple of things, then we're going to go right to the arena. First thing I want to point out here is when I'm flipping my reins over and I attach his martingale to the breast collar, I always double check on the height of my martingale and make sure it's set to the right height for every horse. If you haven't seen the video yet about the martingale that I use, why I use it, how I use it, I'll link that in the description box below because I have a pretty specific reason for using it, and I use it on every horse that I ride. Now, he'd already had groundwork done. Like when I did all the groundwork with him to begin with, it was all done in a traditional Western saddle. And today he's already had a little bit of groundwork done with the Western saddle. We haven't gone back to it since before the first ride. So he was reacquainted with it today before I stepped on him. Always putting on a back cinch can be a new experience for them, even if they've had it before. So I always like to go back and let them work a little bit, experiencing the difference with the weight and the back cinch. The Western saddle is an entirely different feel for them compared to the bareback saddle that I ride in. And actually, the tree on this Western saddle allows for more shoulder movement, so it allows more freedom of shoulder for them to get a full extension. That's one of the downfalls of the bareback saddle that I ride in. And so I'm going to start off here doing figure eights to begin with. Anytime I can change direction with them, they're going to learn their footfall faster, they're going to learn that much faster, I'm going to get in timing with them that much better. And as we go around, he's dropping his shoulder on me to the left here, and that's his stronger side. And so he's pushing on me just a little bit and cutting his round pen in half there, and so I'm taking my inside rein now, and I'm starting to lift it straight up, and I'm using a lot of inside leg here. So now, because we're in a new piece of equipment, both saddle and headstall, I want to practice everything that he knows up to this point. It's just a review, so figure eights, stops, roll away. We're going to do all of that just like we have been before we add something new to go with our new piece of equipment and our new headstall. Now, if you remember in previous videos, rolling back to the left was his tough side. He wanted to turn it into a turn on the forehand. So How I fix that is by asking them to walk forward and to keep the forward motion and turn them into the rail just like I did there. And that's going to help him to understand that he has to keep that front end moving around. And eventually we will slow that hind end down to where it will pivot. Now he was looking to open this gate right here, and we're going to see some problems with that here in a few more rides, because he's going to get to where he just wants to go to that gate and get the heck out of the round pen. And I can't say that I blame him, but we're going to run into a problem here soon enough in a few more rides, and you're going to be able to see how I handle that as well. But he's getting a whole lot better about figuring out the pattern and setting up properly, getting that gate closed. I think if I put any other rider on him at this point, he would do it because that's what he's been patterned to do at this point. Well, Jeannie took me seriously here when I said I didn't want to edit any of these videos so everybody got to see everything, but I didn't think you probably wanted to watch him walk into the arena, so I took that clip out. But here you see me getting ready to mount him on the right side. This is his first time being mounted on the right side. And I wanted to point out here too that I checked his equipment over again before I stepped on. You know, I always want to err on the side of safety. I'm always double checking my cinch, double checking my breast collar, double checking my martingale to make sure if I ever get off of them in a ride, I always go back and look again, because you never know when somebody needs to be cinched up a little bit tighter, and that could be grounds for if they spook at something and your whole saddle slides sideways because they've spooked and ran off one direction or another. I'm going to pick him up in a trot here on this far south side of the arena, and every horse kind of wants to drop in on this corner here, and he's going to argue with me a little bit. I'm going to elevate that inside rein, and he decides to take a lope off all on his own and take off pretty hard and fast right here. And this is where that emergency stop is so important, because I can down regulate him just like that. It's that quick. We've practiced it so much, and he understands what that means, that's how we eliminate those accidents from happening, and we eliminate that from turning into a huge wreck. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move him out pretty hard and fast here, because if he wants to be that quick right off the bat, I'm going to put him right to work. Something else I want you to notice here about my riding is my legs are always engaged, my core is always engaged. When he decides to go running off like that and take off at whatever speed he wants to, there's no whiplash for me, there's no body flinging around, my legs aren't behind me. My core is always engaged. So this is, again, not a sport for somebody who's not in very good physical condition. And I have to work really hard at my core to hold myself together when they fall apart. I have to be the balance point and the voice of reason physically for them when they fall apart like that. So I'm going to change directions quite a bit here with him, and the more I can change directions with him, do transitions within the gaits, so trot to canter to trot, or trot to lope to trot, figure eights here. This is going to help educate him a little bit on work ethic and what's expected of him right when he goes to work. And it's also going to help with football again, getting in timing. And he surprised me a little bit here. He had quite a bit more energy than I anticipated, and this ground gets real deep really quick for them. And so I'm going to take that opportunity just to change directions a lot here like I am, and use that natural impulsion that he's giving me to pick up leads, drop to trot lead changes, circling. All that stuff takes a lot of impulsion on their part, and I can only bring so much energy to the table when I'm riding them. They have to bring a certain amount of energy themselves, and so he's doing his part, bringing the energy to the table, so I'm going to focus that energy in a good, positive direction. And you're seeing here, he's taking his left lead more often than he's taking his right. And these drop to the trot lead changes will correct it. The more you do them, they will correct themselves. The more correct he gets in his movements, the bigger circle I will allow him to make. So here I'm allowing him to lope out a little bit bigger, using more of the arena. But when he's incorrect and he's speedy and he's not listening to my leg cues when I try to set him up for the correct lead, I'm going to bring him down smaller and tighter. So he's getting a lot of practice here at balancing himself, holding his leads, and taking the circle. And remember, the horse that we were riding just a few rides ago couldn't lope this lap around the arena. He was drifting all over the place, and now look at, we're trotting and we're starting to lope smaller circles. So look at how many times we've gotten to practice picking up correct leads in this ride alone. I mean, what a good experience for them in this ride. And there's no reason every single horse that is started couldn't do this. They're all capable of doing it. They're all just horses. Mechanically, they're all the same, unless of course they're gated. But in this case, and right around as he came around that one corner, he was drifting a little bit, and he about drifted into my cameraman there, and he's starting to get a little bit tired on me. And then right here, he picks up the wrong lead. That's another indication he's getting tired. He's going to the lead that he's more comfortable on. And then my damn latigo dropped down, and so look at how nice that emergency stop was this time, so I could fix my latigo. He was like, okay, I'm ready to stop now. And that's a pretty good indication that he's learning there. And this is honestly one of the fastest, easiest ways to work through a hot-headed horse. I mean, let's say he was race bred and he was just a fireball and he was all fed up. This is how I bring a hot-headed horse and I down-regulate them. These drop-to-trot lead changes always bring them down mentally and physically and emotionally, and get them in a mental place where they can be reasoned with. And the problem is most folks aren't willing to do this. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of stamina on the rider's part. Again, I go back to it again. It takes a lot of core and leg on my part. And look at how good he was willing to stop now. He was more than happy to stop. And now he's going to play game over, and he's going to play game over like a champ for me. When we use these techniques correctly and we get a horse to reach their head long and low, walk around in relaxed, quiet, calm manner, we are starting to rewire the hard drive on this guy's brain. And there's a lot more going on here than just a colt that's walking around the arena quietly. He's turning over his trust to us. These good, happy endorphins are flowing through his brain. It's allowing his muscles to relax. And there are things going on here muscularly that he's using now, muscles that he wouldn't normally use. If his head was up in the air, he'd hollow out his back. He wouldn't be using his obliques. He'd probably have his hocks camped out behind him. So by carrying himself around in this manner, there are so many good things that are happening here that we need to be able to get more horses to this level mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I think as a horse culture, we're not getting that done. We're getting their heads down artificially with big bits and equipment that is just gimmicky, and it forces their head down. This guy is choosing to put his head down there on his own accord. I'm going to pick up the reins here again, put him back to work, working on our basic handle. We're going to stop and roll away into the fence. And he struggles with rocking the weight to the hind end and keeping that front end moving in his roll. And he kind of gets in a fight with the bit with me here a little bit, and he's not entirely understanding it. And so I'm just going to have to keep on working through it, stay consistent with my hands to try to keep those front legs moving and the hind end stiller. And he's really tucking his head back into his chest in that stop and roll. And anytime they tuck their head back behind the vertical, it always makes it difficult to do any sort of maneuver with them. And he really resists here, so I just hold. You don't see me jerk and yank and pull. All I do is just hold. I kind of give him a wall there and say, hey, this is where I told you to stop, and I want you to stop moving your feet at this point. There's really no reason to be pulling and yanking. I just hold consistently. And he drops his shoulder a little bit on this left side. I have to take my rein up towards my inside shoulder a little bit, so that inside rein up towards my right shoulder. Sorry about that. Just to kind of elevate that shoulder so he's not dropping in that circle. And this is something that has to be addressed from the very beginning. Too many people that I train before that the colt goes on to next, they see this problem in a lot of horses that they get from other trainers. So I try to address the balance issue and dropping the shoulder from day one. And a lot of colt starters don't catch that from the beginning. Whether these horses go on to be a barrel horse next or a rope horse next, they all need to be able to elevate their shoulders and move off of leg pressure and spiral in and out. And you can tell me all you want that your horse is just going to be a ranch horse and they don't need to do all of this arena work. They don't need to know how to pick up correct leads and lope on correct circles. But I'm going to tell you something. When you're out in the pasture and you're chasing down a yearling heifer, it kind of helps if your horse knows his footwork and your horse has the balance to go in a straight line and change direction when that yearling heifer starts ducking and diving. So he's super crabby with me here. He's not understanding how to do that roll away. And I'm just going to keep working at it and be as consistent as I can. Now, you'll see right here, I'm going to spank him on the hiney with my stick. And look, it's not that he's not capable of doing it, because he just did it right there. He held that hind end in place, and he kept the front end moving. But you have to speed him up in order to get that out of them sometimes. And if you're not willing to speed up your horses and put some pressure on them, then you know what? This isn't for you. And, you know, to go back to him not getting it done when we were at a standstill, one of the reasons that he is struggling to get it done when he's at a standstill is because we've completely lost all motion. So when they're in motion, it's easier to get them to bring the hind end up underneath them, hold it still, and move the front end around. We've engaged the psoas muscle on them, and when that psoas muscle is engaged, it works a lot more efficiently than if you come to a complete standstill. And so that's why it's more effective for him right now to just keep him moving through that maneuver to get him to understand it. And look at that, was so much better. Now he's getting it. He's starting to get it. I gave him a big pet. I loosen up my reins a little bit, and I'm just going to let him trot off. As I come around this corner, I'm going to go ahead and stop him again and roll away to the fence. And he didn't quite want to come to a stop for me. And I can remember now, I probably should have played game over with him after having that series of really tough rollaways to the left. But he still had a little bit too much ambition there going into that stop, so I went ahead and rolled him away, and I kept going with him. I'm going to work a couple really nice circles here off the rail. I try to get off the rail as much as I can now and not have him balancing on it and using it for balance. And then I'm going to put him back on that rail again and in the same exact spot, ask him for the stop and roll away. And here's something else that I want to share with you. It's just a technique that I use when, use your arena to your advantage, okay? Remember, this horse wanted to go out the gate. We're turning the direction of the gate. It's always easier to teach them a maneuver if you're going back the direction that they want to go. So whenever I start working these rollaways, I always turn them back the direction of home or the gate. When we're walking home after a ride out into the pasture and we start practicing rolls and stuff, I will always use the walk home to work on efficient rolls, because rolling the direction of home, they're always going to do it better than the direction of going out. Or if I want to practice stop, I'll practice stop the direction of heading out, because obviously they don't want to ride out nearly as bad as they'd rather just stay at home. Hope that makes sense. So he has learned to tuck his head into his chest to get behind the bit, and then he doesn't have to deal with the bit pressure. And it's a really, really tough problem to fix. And I just hate to transition them out of this bit. I train so much better when I'm using this piece of equipment, and it works so well for me that, again, it's my fault here. I needed to get him out of this, and it took me a few more rides before I finally took him out of this and put him in a traditional snaffle. But he's not happy with the mouthpiece 100%, and he's not comfortable in it, and he keeps on trying to get away from it by tucking his head really tight into his chest. Embracing change and trying something new and thinking of outside of our box is something I think we all struggle with, and it's really hard to do, and it's hard to accept when we need to make that change. And I recognize it when it happens. I'm still a little bit slow to make that change. So what I'm doing right here is trying to work that same spot. He knows the stop is coming at this point. I'm asking for it. He's getting a little bit rude and pushy through my hands. He's getting crabby, kind of getting sick of being drilled on here a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and have him move out, give him a little bit longer rein, and I'm going to trot him out, let him get quiet and happy before I eventually just let him come to a walk on his own and play game over on his own. I start to slow down my body here a little bit, and I slowed down my posting there shortly. I'm just slowing down my riding altogether and kind of winding him down, if you will, till he starts to think about coming down to that walk on his own. And as soon as he takes that walk, I'm going to go ahead and just feed the reins out to him. And again, he's going to start reaching his head down long and low, and he's going to walk really quietly. So even though we had him kind of crabby and pissy earlier, he is very forgiving. He's relaxed. He's okay that we kind of drilled on him a little bit. And this is how we improve our relationship together. Okay, we're walking along playing game over here, and I am going to take him on this rail and start working on some turns on the forehand and try to turn it into a side pass. I'm going to take my right rein and kind of go up towards my left shoulder and start to kick his hip over with my right leg, and he wasn't giving it to me there. He was kind of ignoring me, so I had to spank him on the butt and push him over. And something I want to point out, do you see how he tried to go back the opposite direction like it was a roll away? This goes back to the very first time I ever practiced this in the round pen. I never let him change direction. When we are working on this technique where I'm just asking him to slow that front end down, kick that hip over, and we're going to turn this into a side pass, I never allow him to turn and go back the other direction. And of course he gets mad, he doesn't understand what I'm asking for. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. He has to get over being crabby with me. And he's got to let me take his head around. I'm going to down regulate him just a little bit, let him find a happy place, and having his head bent around, talk him out of it. And then he goes, okay, I can stop being a crab about this now. Okay, we'll go try it again. And use your arena to your advantage. I take the trot him clear down to the other end again, and because we're going the direction of the gate, the direction to go out, they're more likely to keep moving over for me. Now see this next trip through, now he's starting to get it. He kicked that hip over for me. I have to release. This is where the timing is of utmost importance. I have to release as soon as he gets it done correctly. And now he's a little bit more relaxed about it. He understands what I'm asking for. He's a little less reactive here to my every command, every cue. And remember how we talked about from the beginning, leaning away from all leads and posting and leaning away from that inside leg. See how hard I'm leaning to the right and putting that right leg into him to allow him to go left, and I've taken my left leg entirely off of him. It's over exaggeration, and it's obviously not the prettiest, but when we're trying to get the point across to them and they're not understanding, sometimes we have to over exaggerate the maneuver. I always like to trot back down to the other end of the arena because it's a straight line maneuver, and they have to learn how to balance themselves trotting on the diagonal down to the other end, and it's very effective to teach them balance and work ethic when you trot them the opposite direction of the way they want to go. So here we go, trying it the other direction. Of course, we get some argument. He doesn't entirely understand it. And on this side, you see me take my left rein up towards my right shoulder. I take my left leg into him. I lean really hard to the left. I open up that right leg. You'll see me do it again here. And I'm just using my arena rail to my advantage. It's, you know, it's a crutch. You might as well use it in these beginning rides. We turn right here to head back and do it again. And look, he really shoves that shoulder off to the left and drifts on me here. He drifts again as I pick him up in a trot, and you see he goes directly to that arena rail, and he does that on his own, and that's one thing that I'm trying to correct all the time, is keeping those shoulders in between my hands and legs and on the straight line and keep them balanced. Instead of working that turn on the forehand and side pass maneuver again, I felt like he needed to be moved out a little bit. So I go ahead and take a lope here, and this again is part of the curriculum. I want to be able to lope the entire perimeter of this arena without having to do those drop the trot lead changes like we did in the very beginning. And he does take a really nice stop here. You know, at this point I'm not looking for him to drag his butt in the ground. I'm looking for a nice balanced stop. And he roll-aways really nice on the fence there for me. And I post on the correct diagonal here because I want to take the right lead, and you see me speed up my post, and he just about takes the wrong lead, and then I check him back, correct him, set him up again, and post him into it again. And as riders, we need to feel that. We need to know before it happens. We need to address these problems before they happen, and we need to correct them. Otherwise, we're going to have an imbalanced horse that can't take one lead or another. He's starting to play out on me a little bit. He's looking for the stop now where he wasn't looking for it in the beginning. And look at how pretty this rollaway is now. Nice step back. He's almost holding his hind end in place. There wasn't any argument. He wasn't tucking his head back really tight into his chest. You know, we've softened him in his body. We've done our job today. We have a quieter horse. We have a confident horse. And he's really starting to play out. You can see as I tried to have him take a lope there, he wrung his tail just a little bit on me. And I'm just going to take him a little bit further here before I quit for the day. And truly, when is the best time to practice a stop? When they're tired. It's their idea, and we give them a cue, we put a cue with it, and then they're looking for it. It's the easiest way to teach a horse to stop. And when he stops, I start adding that backup maneuver. He's not tucking his head nearly as tight into his chest as he was. And I take that opportunity to take some really good backup steps on him, and I step off of him after I get those backup steps. And so guess what that's going to do? That's going to create a horse that is looking to back up for me because he's thinking, hey, she's going to get off of me and be done when I back up really good like this. So it's always about timing. It's always about giving them the release at the very exact moment in order to teach a technique. Alright, well, I had a little more horse than I thought, and we worked through some of him being crabby with me. When I stopped him down there, I had intentions of walking him out a little bit more and cooling him out and playing game over, but he started to back up so nice for me. I wanted to dismount as he was backing up for me, and he was so close to the rail it was hard for me to give him the cue and then step off, so it was kind of an awkward moment over there. But I got it done, and hopefully next time around he's a little more responsive when I ask for the backup, and he's looking for the stop a little bit more. I think part of that not looking for the stop earlier was just because he was a little fresh. Other than that, I'm pretty pleased with that ride. I'm gonna go cool him out now, and thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends, and I'll try to link all the other videos in the description bar, and watch out for more. I think I've got 15 left to do now. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.